So welcome to the Master Gardener Volunteer Program Social Media Training for 2024. And I am thrilled that you are here with us today. And I want to thank you for the work that you do with social media with your county programs. It is so important, and it's important for us to do this training on a regular basis because things change. People are new. We have different folks coming into their roles as master gardeners. So some of you may be already running a page, but others of you might also just be new to this or something that you want to do. So we want to be able to give you the tools and the guidelines that you need going forward. But I do want to say thank you, because these are rough waters that we navigate sometimes. Sometimes it's marvelous. We put up a great picture and everybody loves it, and everybody learns something, and it's a wonderful event. But other times it's a little bit more difficult navigating what goes on in social media. And this is truly something that we've only been doing for a little bit more than a decade. So it's good to stay educated. So thank you for being here. Thank you for the work you do at the county, and thank you for wanting to stay current with your knowledge. So we're going to have two presenters today. Our first presenter is Becky Clapp. She's our communications manager for the Center for Land Use Efficiency. And that's the umbrella that the Florida Master Gardener Program and the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program are under. So she is going to be talking to us first. And then we have Angela Gregory, who is our social media specialist for Florida Friendly Landscaping. And if you've been following that page, you will notice that it has changed and improved greatly over the last 6 months. So we're so happy that we have Angela's creativity and her leadership around that page. And she really is very well versed in these social media concepts and guidelines. So we're real happy that she's going to be joining us after Becky. So Becky, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing screen. Everyone, I will be here the whole time. I will probably turn off my screen, but I will be fielding your questions and monitoring the chat box. So if you need to jump in there, and then we do have plenty of time built in for your questions at the end. Okay, Becky, I'm going to stop sharing and you can start.
Well, good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to get my presentation started. I'm hoping it looks okay. Again, I'm going to be talking today a little bit about branding. What is branding and why it's so critically important to the mission of the Master Gardener Volunteer Program. First of all, I'll tell you a little about myself. I have a degree in telecommunications from the University of Florida, and I was a senior producer at an ABC affiliate, a local television station, for about 4 years before I joined IFAS Communications, and I worked there for 18 years as a video producer. So I may have met some of you on my travels prior to taking this job here, but today I work at the Center for Land Use Efficiency, CLU, and we love our acronyms. And CLU, as Wendy explained, is the umbrella for Florida Friendly Landscaping, the Program for Resource Efficient Communities, and the Master Gardener Volunteer Program. My presentation today about branding, you can find all of the information at the website listed here at the branding.ifas.ufl website. So this is information that didn't originate with me. It's all coming from UF IFAS and approved. I'll show this link again at the end of my presentation. But what is a brand? It's something we've probably heard a lot about. You definitely are familiar with the term, I hope. But where does it actually come from? It might surprise you that the term brand actually comes from agriculture. It was used back, not just within Florida, but, across the West. But here in Florida, I'll talk about, Florida didn't have a fence law until I believe about the 1930s or 40s. And so cattle herds would kind of wander around grazing. And in order to be able to identify which cattle belonged to which rancher, they applied a brand that could easily be recognized and seen. And so they could decide which cattle belonged with which rancher. So over time, that term has really changed. And now it applies to products, and to programs, and to companies. but the idea of what we use it for is still the same. So we're going to play a little game. Please use the chat to let us know, but I'm going to show you a couple of logos and see if you guys can identify them. So we'll start with this one. I know it quite well. I spend plenty of time there. And this one. Any guesses? I bet everybody's using some of these products right now.
Everyone's doing great.
Are they getting them? Good, good. I'm sorry, I can't really see the chat, so.
100%, yes.
Okay. This one brings, I mean, every time I see number 3, it brings a glow to my heart. Number 4, I spend way too much money at. This one, again, just warms my heart. And our final one. I almost have a Pavlovian response to this one. I like almost start breaking out in a sweat just looking at it. And here are the answers in case anybody missed a couple. So again, these logos are famous: Amazon, Apple, Starbucks, Target, McDonald's, Nike. So the logo is part of the brand. It's easy to identify. We know it instantaneously, but it's not just the logo. There are actually slogans that are part of the brand. Do you guys know what the slogan for McDonald's is? I'm loving it. Yeah. Starbucks doesn't actually have a slogan, which is interesting. They have a mission or a philosophy that's different. So that's interesting. But Target's is expect more, pay less. Nike's, I bet you know off the top of your head, just do it. And Amazon's, I will tell you, because Amazon's made me laugh a little bit. Work hard, have fun, make history for Amazon. So, but those are all part of the slogan, the logo, they're all part of a brand. And so we want to talk about, what does a brand do? What are some of the things we want a brand to do? And we always talk about building this emotional connection. So what do you feel when you see this brand or this logo? What do you feel when you see this logo? Pride. Again, I love the Olympics. So every time I watch it, just seeing the Olympic rings makes me feel like excited and just fills me with joy and pride. What about this logo? Right? I mean, the feelings have changed. Boeing used to be a logo we'd see and feel very secure, engineering, quality. No, it's a little bit less. I always see White Castle and think of joy, just because it is like a savior, a pinnacle at the end of the night. When you see a White Castle, you're not going to have to go home hungry. So, but the brand creates an emotional connection because of its consistency. When I go to Dunkin' Donuts and I order a coffee with 4 creams and 2 sugars, I know what that's going to taste like. That consistency creates an emotional connection. And strong brands are trusted because they can deliver time and time again. And they create a unique experience. So again, White Castle, that's a unique experience. For like it or hate it, it's definitely a unique experience. But, again, there are some common things that a good brand has. It's easy to recognize. Everything is the same. You have the same colors, the same fonts, the same slogan, the same messaging. Those things are consistent no matter where you go. But what happens when it doesn't look the same? If I switch the colors for FedEx and UPS, it just feels wrong. Like, you can tell something's off. And the problem when you don't have consistency is that consistency can lead to a lack of credibility, right? So that's why it's so important that the Starbucks logo look the same, that when you come into a McDonald's, the color scheme is the same, the setup is almost the same. You can have a little bit of variety within that, but consistency is key, because we want that credibility. We want people to know where they are and what to expect. So we've talked about this a little bit. The name, these are the 3 elements that are essential to a strong brand. The name is consistent. So if we're talking about the Master Gardener Volunteer Program, We never forget any of those key letters or those keywords, right? We sometimes shorten it as shorthand with us, but when we're talking to the public or talking to new clients, we're the Master Gardener Volunteer Program. The message, our messaging is always clear and consistent. This is a very important, critical part of it. Again, that consistency leads to credibility, and we want people to know that we're a trusted source. And we want the experience to always be positive and value rich for the people who are coming to us for answers, for solutions. That's what we want them to do, is to have that positive experience. And every person who's a member of the program, every volunteer needs to have that thought process whenever you're interacting with the public, however you are. Again, the visuals we want to use, if you'll notice in my slides, there's always a Master Gardener Volunteer logo. Always, we want that to be consistent and shown anytime we're talking about our brand, anytime we're talking about our program. Again, the consistent messaging. And we want to create one voice that's the same on all platforms. So whether it's in a handout, whether it's part of a presentation, whether you're working at a plant clinic, or if you're on social media. So again, this is kind of training. We're turning the ship now to talk about social media a little bit. When we talk about branding, and branding in social media is very, very critical to helping build that solid foundation for the brand. Social media. So what is the messaging that we want to convey on social media for the Master Gardener Volunteer Program? We want people to know that the MGV program is a resource that people can trust. In fact, the mission of the MGV program is to assist extension agents in providing research-based horticulture education to Florida residents. That is our mission. And we want to do that, and how we can do that is to assure people that the Master Gardener Volunteer Program provides information that's developed and reviewed by UF experts to ensure that the best information is presented to Florida residents to meet their needs. We want everyone to know that MGVs work very hard to improve the quality of lives for their clients, and that we do this through a relaxed and friendly atmosphere. We're knowledgeable and informative, and we use everyday language that's easy to understand. This is important for when you communicate in social media, but also in all areas of communication. That is the Master Gardener voice. So when you get started in social media, and again, I'm sure some of you, this is a repeat, and I apologize for this, but this is just for the newbies. We just want to make sure that we've covered all of our bases for anybody who might be brand new and thinking about maybe creating a page or getting new accounts set up. The first step for a social media account is to check and see if an account already exists before creating one. We don't want to duplicate. There are a lot of what we call zombie accounts out there that aren't being run. When you go to search, they may come up, but there's no way to kill them. And we'll get into some reasons that happens. But the first thing you want to do is create a Facebook page, not a profile, not a group, and you need to include the disclaimer when you create it. We'll get into that a little bit more in some other the slides, but this is very critical to understand. Not a profile, not a group. If you have a group, it can be private, and that creates problems because it is not accessible to everyone, and it violates some of the Sunshine State laws that we need to follow as part of UF and IFAS. If you're creating an Instagram account, you want to create a business profile. So again, I'm going to say those two things again. Facebook page and an Instagram business profile. That's what we're creating and setting up. We want them to be official pages and profiles for the Master Gardener Volunteer Program. We also recommend that you use a generic email address and not a specific personal email address. This creates problems if that person decides to leave, or that person decides they no longer want to control the page. Transferring authorization and things like that can be a complete nightmare. So what we recommend is that you use what's called a social media account. Basically, it's a service account. So it's going to have a generic name like MGV _ Charlotte _ County CO at ifas.ufl.edu. By creating this service account, it allows multiple users to have access to it. Some of the accounts now require what's called dual authentication. And so they'll send an email to that address to allow the person who's trying to access the account in. So if you're using this generic service account, then multiple people can post or respond or help to keep track of what's going on those social media accounts so it doesn't fall on one person. It also allows the MGV coordinator to get online and maybe content review and approve posts before they go out, which is a critical part we want to have them involved in as well. Once you have your account created, you're going to use this email address to register with UF IFAS. IFAS Communications will take a look at the account to make sure that it follows all of the guidelines and standards of branding. They may make recommendations and suggestions to how to improve the page to make sure that it falls within the guidelines and that it looks like everybody else. Because again, going back to the brand, we want everything to be consistent so that it creates credibility. When you're providing solutions and ideas on that page, we want people to know that it is approved and part of the UF brand, UF IFAS and MGV brands. Once you have approval from UF IFAS, you will then register the page with UF. So again, same idea. We want that consistency, and it will be added to the UF IFAS directory. If you're not sure if your page is part of the directory, you can use this web address and check and see. This is some quick do's and don'ts. Again, I apologize if I'm going through this a little quickly, but I'm sure some of this is just old hat to everybody. So I just didn't want to bore you with stuff you already knew. You do want to include a UF logo, an MGV logo, and your county logo. And you want to include UF, IFAS, and your MGV and county in the name. And again, if you have concerns about which logos are approved and which logos to use, you can go to this website here, and anything that's there is approved and too legit to quit. Do not use the gator head. I'm sorry, I know. I love it too, but it's for the University of Florida athletics only. In fact, it is a trademark. The mascot and the name are authorized for athletic sites with prior approval from UAA, the University Athletic Association only. So sorry. If you got it up there, take it down, please. Do include contact information. So we want again, a phone number and an email address. And this is where that generic email address can also be helpful. So when people want to reach out with questions, it's not coming to your personal email address. It's not bombarding one person. It's coming to that generic service account. So anyone who has access to it can take those questions and respond. So again, just kind of helps share that load, share that workload a little easier. You also want to include your physical location and an online location. Your online location should include whatever it is. It should include ifas.ufl.edu for your online. That's pretty important. We want to make sure we're pushing them to an approved website. And your physical location, if you don't want to, the information for the extension office is online. So we just want to make this easy for them to find it if they need it. If there's any questions, you can always just use a city or, the town, that kind of thing. In your bio, especially on Facebook, you need to include the disclaimer that you see on this screen. This is a requirement. Obviously, you'd fill in the bracketed information with what applies. So you'd have Master Gardener, again, I'm harping on Charlotte County just because they're the county that's in my brain, but MGV, Charlotte County activities, you'd fill in the blanks as appropriate. It is a requirement. So there is a link at the end of my presentation. So if you need this and it's not up there, we can make sure that you can get access to it and add it. It's not a difficult lift. And you want to include that you are associated with UF. We want to be associated with the UF brand. It already has credibility, so it's going to give you that next level up. Okay, we want to use attractive cover photos, especially right across the top of Facebook. It's got that nice big banner. So we all know that pretty pictures catch our eyes and make you want to stay a little longer there. So this is an easy lift. We've all got tons of gardening photos that we can throw up there. And Angela's going to get into a little bit more detail about what photos to use and how to use that appropriately. A little teaser of what's coming up. This is also key. You want to remember that you're representing the Master Gardener Volunteer brand. So what did we talk about messaging? We want to think about our mission. We want to think about using our Master Gardener voice that is credible, that is, kind, positive experiences, what kind of experience we're creating in the social media atmosphere for people who are coming there for information. We want them to have that same experience on social that they would have in person. So we don't want to use slang. We do not want to use bad grammar, which I love. It should probably be poor grammar. Somewhere there's an English teacher out there somewhere who's not proud of my language selection. And don't forget punctuation. As sad as it is, but we all know we judge people when we look at something and it's not written correctly. The first thing I think is, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. So we don't want to fall victim to that. And it's a simple fix. We want to think twice and double check before we post. Remember that we are posting to the world. We're not just posting to our friends or even to our followers. Our pages are public. They can be seen by journalists, they can be seen by politicians, they can be seen by people on the other side of the world. We want to just make sure that we're not doing anything that would upset people and that we are providing accurate information in the best way possible. Another do is do post regularly. People get used to seeing posts. It doesn't have to be every day. It can be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It can be Tuesday, Thursday. It can work into your schedule, but we do want to post on a regular basis. And we want to respond promptly to questions. Again, that generic email account is going to help it out because we'll be able to share that responsibility through other people. And the goal of social media is to engage in conversation. You want to like people's comments. You want to answer questions. You want to help facilitate discussions and give solutions. We want to engage with the public, and social media is an easy way we can do that on a daily basis, and really help build that brand by providing information and creating that credible source. Oops, sorry, I should have clicked that before. Here's the another good problem that everyone has when we're talking about social, which is handling comments. We can never delete comments. It's a First Amendment issue because, again, our pages are public and we are representing the university and the program. Because of that, we cannot delete comments, no matter how offensive, no matter how troubling. What we can do, however, is we can hide comments when it is appropriate. So if it is a violation of Florida or federal law, you can hide that comment. And hiding a comment doesn't delete it, it just makes it so the general public cannot see it. So again, violation of a Florida or federal law, hide that comment. If it's irrelevant to the topic or it's spam, if we're talking about alternative ground covers and someone else wants to come in and talk about, price of tea, that doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about. So you can go ahead and hide that comment. And the last one is if there is a link to a third-party website or content. I just had to do this today. Someone was trying to sell something on the MGV state page and just had to go ahead and hide that comment. But when in doubt, if there is a question, don't hide it. You can always email, contact Wendy or myself or anyone in communications to see if it's appropriate to hide that comment, but it's always better as a default not to hide it. Here's some additional training resources. that I highly recommend. The first one is going to be the IFAS communication social media training. It's going to walk you through in much more detail everything I kind of hit on and moved through. And it is, you can train at your own pace. It's about an hour long course, but you can stop and start as you need. And again, if there are follow-up questions or there's something you want more detail in, there's all kinds of information there. Also the branding guide, which again is where the information for a lot of my presentation came from. This is the IFAS Communications branding guide. And so it has all of the information and assets, logos, all of this in detail, breaks it down for you, and really can help you stay on point with what we want to do with branding, not only for the Master Gardener Volunteer Program, but also for Extension. Since we're there to support them, we want to make sure we're following their guidelines. The IFAS IT contact information I've also provided in case you need to reach out to them to help set up that service account, that generic email account. If you don't have one and you would like one, you can reach out to them or work with your coordinator, your MGV coordinator to help them set up an account. And then there was some previous training on social media that Chris Vivian, she is the communications director for IFAS Communications. She did provide last year. So if you attended that training and you wanted to go back and take a look at it, you can do that there. Are there any questions?
There were a few questions. Danny from St. Lucie asked about using Grammarly or a website to check your grammar and sentence structure. And I said, yeah, you could do that if you wanted, but usually here we just have somebody else look at it, proof it for us. So that's one thing.
I did just want to add one thing that I think is important to, yes, it's very important to use our best grammar, but to me, the critical part is we want to have someone review our content. Always have our content reviewed. It's important how we say, but it is important, more important what we're saying. We want to make sure our coordinator is reviewing it or a content expert is reviewing it before we post. So, and 9 times out of 10, they're going to catch your grammar mistakes as well.
Right. Yeah, that content really has to be reviewed. And Becky, would you talk a little bit about how we create, we'll say it again, but how we create that social media calendar for a few weeks out?
Absolutely. We use something called Later to schedule. It's just a scheduling app and it is available. There is a free version of it. It does limit how many posts you can do, which might be a blessing or a curse, depending on how often you like to post. But you can do it also through Meta Business Suite, which is an option with Facebook, which Angela will get into and cover a little bit more in detail. But yeah, it's great because we can schedule and you can also create a draft. So you can create your post and it doesn't need to be posted. It can be saved. And then a coordinator can come in and review it, make changes and update it and approve it and schedule it for, again, if this is a Wednesday, they could approve it for a Friday or for a Monday. And they can approve multiple posts. So again, if you want to kind of work ahead and create a post for, the next week or so, and Angela's going to be able to tell you there are some limitations on that, but you will be able to work ahead and sort of provide that in a timely manner. So your coordinator, especially if they're slammed, like I know they always are, will have a moment when they have a moment to review it and approve it.
And, minimally, those posts have to be reviewed for content before they go out. Because we want to make sure that we're getting out the best information possible. And a lot of times someone will say, oh, I just saw a new document on that, or there's a EDIS blog on that. We can add to that post to make it as robust and as educational as possible. So the other question, Becky, is that they would like you to pop some of those links in the chat box.
Absolutely.
And that would be helpful. And then we will create a resource sheet that has all the links on it. And we will send that out to you all who have attended today, and then we'll also post it with the recording later. Okay. Very good. Well, thank you, Becky. Appreciate it. Thank you. Very informative. And so next up we have Angela Gregory, who's going to be presenting to us a little bit more on the whole social media creation of that content and making sure that things are posted in the right way. And she just has a lot of great information to share with us. So welcome, Angela. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. It's going to take me just a moment to get my screen shared here. I'm trying to line everything up. Let's see. All right.
So Becky,
All right.
while Angela, if you'll hold on, we do have a question and
Yep.
for so this is the question in the question answer box. We follow the proper steps for building a social media page on Facebook and profile on Instagram and went through the approval process with UF and our county, but wasn't aware of the IFAS step in the process. Will it be fine to submit the same paperwork from that UF process for the IFAS step? And I think I know the answer, but I'll let you answer, Becky.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, if it's been approved by UF, there might be some minor little tweaks just that IFAS prefers or recommendations that they have, but you've gone through the major hoops. This is like a little minor hoop to jump through. But we do want to make sure that we know about your page. So that's the other great thing that submitting to UF IFAS communications does, is that if we know about your page, we can help. And again, that is the mentality of social media, is that the more people who know and share your content and help boost each other up, we can reach more eyeballs, we can influence more people, we can educate more people by working together with this team mentality, so that you can use resources from other people and they can share your resources. It's this idea, again, it's the core of what Master Gardener volunteers are doing every day with their work in the real world. So it's just this taking that same approach and using it on social as well.
All right, Angela, you're ready to go.
All right. So I want to introduce myself. My name is Angela Gregory. I have been with the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program now for about 4 months, almost 5 months. I have been probably spending the last 20 years, I've spent the last 20 years helping brands market digitally as well as with advertising. That goes from small businesses in senior care to library districts. I previously worked in higher education in the community college level, and I'm really happy to be here and help promote the Florida Friendly Landscaping brand. Prior to that, I was in the United States Marine Corps as a communication specialist, a radio operator. A lot of my focus with that is really focusing on the customer experience, and basically how users end up using the tools that we have available to them. So that's a little bit about me. What we're going to be talking a little bit today, all of it's going to be based upon the foundations that UF IFAS Communications has already established in their brand guidelines. They've kind of broken this down into 3 different categories. They have structure, they have create, and then they have elevate. So within those 3 things, we're going to be talking a little bit about how you go about maybe structuring and defining what a social media plan might look to you and your program. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how you go about creating, what the different terminology is for some of these different types of social posts. And then lastly, how do we help you amplify your message through working with other partners, as well as what tools are available to you to help get your messaging out. So first of all, Becky already covered this a little bit, but we need to go back to whenever we're creating any kind of social media plan, you really need to make sure that you're adhering to your mission and your vision. She did touch upon this in her slide. I think the things that we need to go back to is when you're creating posts, you're sharing posts, make sure that they align with one of the priorities that we have set up for the Master Gardener Volunteer Program. So is it pollinator protections? Is it sustainable food production? Are we talking about invasive plant awareness? Florida-friendly landscaping? You know, let's make sure it aligns with the vision and the goals of what the Master Gardener Volunteer Program is. So here in this slide, this basically just talks a little bit about some of the questions that you need to consider before getting an account or as you're developing your strategy. Some of those basic questions that Becky already covered, like how frequently will you post? What times will you post? What content types will you utilize? Making sure that it aligns with the mission and the vision of the program. And then also who will respond to commenting? And have you also established what the parameters are in terms of responding to comments? Are there certain times of day that nobody will be responding and you can have your audience expect that they won't hear from you during those times of day? This also comes down to resources. How much resource do you have? What resources do you have to allocate towards social media? If you think that you can only allocate 20 minutes every other day, then that's fine, but you need to structure your plans based upon what resources that you have available and go accordingly, because then that way your audience will get to become familiar and have a certain expectation of what they can expect from you and your page. All right, so the next category we're going to go to is creating. So a lot of people, when they're creating content for social media, most people think about what's falling into this category. They solely think about demographics. They think about age, gender, race, language, education, income. Those are all the very common metrics that you would see in an advertising campaign. So any social media advertising campaign, most of the metrics that you would have through Google or anything else are really focused on this category here. But that's just one little piece of the individuals that are going to be following you. Some of the other things that you need to take into account are these three other pillars here. You know, are you advertising to somebody that's outside your geographic area? Like, well, you may have an audience that's going to be following you if you're promoting something that's outside of your geographic area. And your audience may think, well, this doesn't really apply to me. And if they get that kind of content enough, they're going to basically say like, well, I don't think that this is the right page for me. And they may try and go somewhere else to look for something that's more applicable to them. With a lot of social media, the way that it's gone, it used to be that it was really a communication tool that you could share with your friends. You could tell them what you're doing. You could post photos on your personal page. You could do all of that. With brands coming on board and with businesses getting in the mix, they're selling more of a lifestyle. The page is you're selling more of like what is a lifestyle and a passion that you have. I'm finding a community of like-minded people that I want to communicate with. And so that's where values and beliefs, pain points, budget, attitudes, all of those things come into play when you're crafting content. You need to kind of be aware of who that audience is on a larger scale. All right, so we're mixing up content formats. You really want to mix up your content formats to expand your reach. So I have some examples here. This would just basically be a static photo image. These resonate really well with most audiences because they're the ones that seem the most authentic. Not applying filters, not adding a bunch of graphics over the top. This is, you're out in the demonstration garden, you see a beautiful plant, you take a picture of it, you post some educational information that somebody that may be looking at putting that in their yard would benefit from, and that's going to be the most authentic. The other thing that really goes very well for these photos with just a static image like this is photos of people. You're essentially telling stories. You want to connect with your audience. And so highlighting master gardeners on your page, the individuals, highlighting stories of the amazing things that they've accomplished. A simple photo like this is going to be the best way to illustrate that. And it's going to come across as being the most authentic way that your audience is going to connect with you. I didn't graphic text or heavy static image. This here is an infographic. So these have a lot of information on them. They're very attractive. People often share these. But one of the drawbacks to this is this much content on a page isn't tremendously accessible. If you don't provide this information that's in the infographic also within alt text or in the body copy of your post, you may be at risk of not meeting the ADA accessibility standards, for that post. So that's something to keep in mind. Try and keep graphics to a minimum. And when you do, we'll get into some accessibility stuff a little bit later on in the discussion. But it's just something to keep in mind. Try and keep graphics to a minimum on top of photos. We have video content like this great reel that Florida Master Gardener program put out previously. That's another way. Sometimes in feeds, you get individuals that will only look at photos. You have some people that will only look at reels. It just happens to be where they are in that moment. And so by mixing it up, you get a greater opportunity of expanding your reach and your audience. All right, and then I have here carousels. I was going to go ahead and share here for those who don't know what a carousel is. This is an example of what would be a Facebook or Instagram carousel. It's multiple images that are put into one post. So somebody can scroll through and they're kind of like an old slide carousel that you would see for like the old digital, like or not digital, but the old slides that you'd get. This is kind of like that, where you're sliding through a variety of different images. Let's see. Give me a second. All right, so here we're back. And then lastly, stories. Stories are a great way to put out reminders that are quick. They only live for 24 hours. So when you put a story out, it only lives on your page for 24 hours. So if it's not something that you want to have in your main feed, you can share something to a story. It'll be up there quick. It's kind of a last minute reminder for something. Or if you have content that you want to share from another page, and although it falls in line with your audience and your mission and your vision, it may not necessarily be the right timing for your page with what you have maybe coming before it or coming after in terms of what you want to have seen in your stream. So sharing it to a story is a great way to still be able to share that content from another page without having it directly in your feed. Has anybody in this group that maybe manages pages, do you use stories currently? Let's see. Becky, I cannot see the chat. Did anybody respond yes?
Yeah, Mark said no. But Kathy says she loves the idea and she likes the idea of using it as an event reminder.
Okay,
Dalton
perfect.
says sometimes they use a story. Mostly for events. Once in a blue moon, not familiar with it. Sometimes garden highlights. Yeah, so a little bit, Angela, but I think people are looking at those stories. So I'll let you keep going.
Yeah. And stories are a great way too. If you have an event that's happening, like you have a Master Gardener plant sale that's going on and you happen to be at the event in that moment, it's a really great way to capture what happens from the beginning to the end because it is very like photo driven most of the time. So you would put something up, it could be a little video clip, it can be a photo, but it could be something like at the beginning of the sale, you could, before anybody even walks in, you could show people getting prepared. And then let's say an hour later, you give another update about what's going on at the event. So the story in and of itself, the way that they were originally intended is that it would be something that would leverage that you could kind of show what was happening. Like you're flipping pages of a book, you're telling a story at that time. So that's the best way that it was intended for use, but it is really great for those reminders as well.
Yeah. Hey, Angela, Laura said that she uses stories to add registration links. Because Insta doesn't allow for links in the post, so they share it in the story.
Yep, that's a great way to use it. So if you don't know, in Instagram, I know that in Facebook, you can add a link where you can swipe up, but in Instagram, they do have a bunch of stickers that you can add to stories. There's a variety of different stickers that are available, everything from adding a countdown calendar. So if you have an event, you can add a countdown reminder for your event. You can add a sticker for the URL registration. You can also add a sticker for hashtags. As well as mentions and location information. Those are all individual little stickers that have to be added on top while you're in the mobile platform posting to Instagram. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit after you've created your content, you've determined what your strategy is, how many times a week you're going to be posting, what kind of posts you'd like to put up. We're going to talk a little bit about how do you elevate or how do you amplify your message. So here's some do's and don'ts. First, we're going to talk about hashtags. Hashtags, it was at one time, were predominantly just on Twitter, and then they were picked up on Instagram, and now they're pretty much across all three of those platforms. It's essentially a keyword search tool for most individuals. So they can follow hashtags, and they can get content that they deem is interesting to them. So the use of hashtags is great, but we also caution you to use it sparingly. You don't want to spam your whole post with a line of 15 to 20 hashtags. Really, the ideal amount is probably between 3 to 5 hashtags. And in previous ICS presentations that I've watched, they recommend that if you can, you try and build those hashtags into the dialogue of your post. So if you're writing a sentence and you happen to have the word plants in there and you wanted to add that hashtag, you would put hashtag plants as part of your sentence structure for that, instead of putting all of the hashtags down at the end where you just have a slew of hashtags at the very bottom. So we also want to use camel case when we use hashtags. Does everybody here know what camel case is when we're talking about hashtags? All right, camel case, it's the use of capitalizing the beginning of each letter or each word in a hashtag. This does two things. One, visually, it makes it so that you can identify what the individual words are. But also, secondly, when you have a screen reader for accessibility purposes, that screen reader is able to read that as the word that it is, instead of this gobbledygook if you added the two words together without having the first word capitalized for each. Right. And so broader hashtags are good for greater reach. So for instance, if you were looking to, I use the hashtag, Florida friendly landscape, or I use the hashtag, backyard landscaping, things like that, because it's going to have a broader reach than specifically mentioning like hardscapes. Hardscapes, although it may be part of a backyard renovation, it's only one smaller piece to that. And you may catch somebody's attention that it perks their interest, and then they come to that post and then they end up following you. So that's a way to get greater reach, is by using some broader hashtags. Up in the upper right corner of this slide, I've added some of the hashtags that UF IFAS Communications recommends, as well as some of the ones that we went through with the Florida Master Gardener program, just some common ones that we've seen and used regularly. And then avoid hashtags that use acronyms. They could have multiple contexts or uses. So for instance, I believe Florida Friendly Landscaping, or FFL, also means Federal Firearms License. So if I just use the hashtag FFL, I'm posting landscape information to something that could be associated with something completely different. Also, there is such a thing as hashtags being banned by social platforms. There is a list, and I can get that resource to go ahead and provide a link for how you find out what those are. But in best practice, it's usually to go out and search for the hashtag within each platform just to see what comes up. If a hashtag is banned, it's often because the platform has deemed that it is often associated with posts that have something to do with a criminal involvement, or they have something that would be detrimental, to use. And so they've will hide your post entirely if you happen to use that hashtag, if it's one that's banned from their site. And then don't get too specific or lengthy. A lot of people for events or expos want to do a hashtag for a specific event. Unless you know that you're going to have, 10,000 people at your event, the likelihood that you're going to get traction with the very specific hashtag that includes the name and the year and everything else for your event, you're better off posting to your more generalized hashtag. All right. All right. And then for mentioning partners to expand your reach, adding a mention for your partners is always a great idea. Oftentimes that will allow them, if they haven't seen your post in a feed, they might see it and then they can pick that up and share it to their page. So the people that we want to look at tagging, if it's applicable for the content that you're posting, are local government municipality pages, UF IFAS affiliated accounts. You could do Florida friendly landscaping, the research and education centers, also third parties that may be offering an event at their site that would be totally applicable to be able to use their hashtag. They can help you get that messaging out. So if it's at a library or a botanical garden, or if it's just somebody that's a really good organization that isn't seeking any type of, doesn't have any commercial affiliation, so they're not selling things, you can't, go to their site. It wouldn't be construed as if we're trying to promote a specific, another specific brand in terms of commerce. Those are all the do's. Something that people have been doing a lot more recently is using the mention at followers. And while this comes across as it would be a really great way to just push that out to all of your followers at one time, because that's what it does, these come directly into your notifications. And so when somebody tags you or mentions you and you have your notifications set up to receive these, when you start to get these on a daily basis, you want to tune them out. That's not what people want. That's not why they come to social media. Normally they're coming because they want to be able to browse it and look for things on the time when they're available. You don't want to have them perceive that you're spamming them by using the @followers. Now, there have been instances that I have used this from time to time with Florida friendly landscaping. If there is an event that I found out about, like an extension office is doing an online event that maybe I'm not a part of, but I think that it would be really great and of interest to the followers, I will share that information, because it's not as if I'm promoting myself either. It's like, hey, I saw this and I thought that you guys would be interested. I want to let you know about this. But I think in the 5 months that I've been here, I think I've maybe done that twice. So really, you need to use caution when using that. All right, so collab video. For anybody that's creating reels or video content, they now have a feature for both Facebook and for Instagram where you can add somebody as a collaborator on that post. And essentially what it means when you do that is that both posts can go up simultaneously and you're reaching both audiences at the same time, rather than putting up a video and sharing it to your feed where you're kind of passing that message along. This identifies specifically that it's coming from both brands at the same time, as illustrated in this reel. You'll see here it says specifically it's Florida friendly landscaping and the Flip My Florida Yard. page. And so when this happens, you're really opening yourself up for the opportunity to get a greater reach and maybe an audience that wasn't already following you, so that if they find interest in this, they see that you're partnering together and then they would follow your page. That's really the intent of it. All right, so the next way to amplify your message is co-hosting an event on Facebook with other accounts. So you can add several co-hosts. You don't have to just add one co-host to an event page. For instance, this event that we have coming up next month, we're doing with the Great Florida Wildlife and Birding Trail. We've added them as a co-host. What this allows them to do is that they can equally manage the event at the same time that we are. So they can share it to their audience directly. They can, if for some reason something were to get canceled, the flip side of that is that they also have the ability to go ahead and go in and make modifications to the event settings. And then depending on how much you utilize this feature to communicate with people that may be attending your event, both of you could offer responses for communication. You have different communication settings that you can set up and identify who would be responsible for communicating with people that add comments to these pages, event pages. So here I had it. I was going to go in really quick. This is the event page here that we have the co-host on. And for those of you who are not aware, another way to amplify your message is when you're in here in these event pages, you can actually click invite. And what that will allow you to do is you can invite specific followers if you needed to. The thing that I like to do from time to time, again, very sparingly, is I have groups that I'm a part of down here that often post content that is related to Florida-friendly landscaping. So what I would do is if this event looked like it would be interesting to them, you would go ahead and select one of these groups and just give them an invite or a reminder. Say, hey, everybody in this group, I want to let you know you're invited to this event. And then lastly, when you're here, you can also directly, the share button will allow you to directly post this to your feed. And then also, if you had prior events, you can share to an event. So if you had a prior event that you hosted and you really thought that that was a great audience for this event, you could go ahead and share it to that event. Anybody who responded that they were interested or that they were going to that event would get an invite to this event. Right. Right, so those were some of the best ways to go ahead and get your message out after you've created your content and sharing it with partners. The next thing we're going to talk a little bit about, and I think Becky touched on it a little bit, is accessibility. Some of the reasons that she said the do's and don'ts in her presentation directly relate to accessibility reasons. And so the first one I'm going to talk about is working with items when it comes to the visually impaired and working with graphics. As you can see here, these colors are representative of people that have different color blindnesses, different perceptions of color. And so you don't want to use color specifically to imply any type of meaning or emotion in the color itself. If you do so, that would be lost on somebody who has color blindness and they may see green when you intended it to be red. So you want to try and avoid that. You also want to use high contrast text in your visuals. This is an example of different types of visually impaired conditions that individuals may have. As you see here, this is glaucoma, macular degeneration, there's a black spot, cataracts, it's kind of fuzzed out. When you have these types of conditions, it's going to be really difficult. You may not be technically classified as being blind, so you may not be using a screen reader yet. But when you're looking at things, if you have a light gray on a white background, a light gray text on a white background, these individuals aren't going to be able to see that. So you want to be able to provide as much contrast in the colors that you're choosing for your graphics and even the text that you're using. So here in this presentation, this is the recommended contrast checker that ICS has recommended. And when you go to this page, it'll allow you to put in the color code specifically for what you want to use. And it will tell you whether or not at different font sizes, whether or not that graphic is going to be accessible to the average individual with a visual disability. So screen readers, I mentioned a little bit about a screen reader. This is for people that have visual disabilities, and it will give them prompts based upon the information that's put into the digital backend of sites. So for instance, with social media, there is a place for any image where you can add alt text, and it's essentially a descriptor of what we're seeing when you put a post up. So before, when I talked about that really heavy graphic that had all of that text, if that's the only thing that you're putting up there and you said, hey, learn more about our annual report, and there was nothing else there, they wouldn't have any clue as to what you were talking about because the image doesn't even tell them what the purpose of it was if there's no alt text associated with it. And that alt text is going to read it as if it was a sentence. So when they hover over that image or they tab over to that image using their screen reader, it's going to read it to them in the sentence format that you've put in there. So it's really critical that you use punctuation, regular sentence punctuation, that you avoid emojis when you use alt text, as well as minimize your emojis that you have within social posts themselves, because what will happen in the instance that this was given is that this would read, it's great to be a Florida, and in this instance, this emoji isn't for gator, it's crocodile. And it would just read it as crocodile, 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 like over and over and over again. And then after that, it would be Ader, crocodile, 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 crocodile. So if you stack emojis like that, it's a really bad user experience for somebody who has a visual disability that's relying on a screen reader. So just keep that in mind. The other thing for screen readers that you also want to keep in mind is not using all uppercase. Or even in your post, when like this great part, this actually probably wouldn't even read as the word great. That what would happen is it would say it's GREAT to be FLO. It wants to read all of those uppercase letters as individual letters and not as a full word. So try and keep all caps to a minimum. And in addition to that, for those with low vision, when it's all caps like that, it does make it more difficult for people to decipher. They can't see the font as well when it's all caps like that. Here I mentioned camel case again and hashtags, and then limiting emojis and memes. Memes are mentioned here because when you're using a screen reader, generally the text is embedded or it's burned onto the image. Essentially, it doesn't have a file that separates that text from the image itself. So when you have that post go up, unless you've put in the separate line of alt text that thoroughly describes what that meme is representing in all of its glory, they don't see the text, they don't hear the text, they don't get any context as to what it's about. And then when you're linking to something, instead of saying just click here, give them an idea of where you may be linking them to, like, find out more in this UF IFAS article, and then provide the link in the post. So now we're going to move on to, for those who are hearing impaired, closed captions versus open captions. Open captions are basically always turned on, similar to like a meme that I mentioned before, where it's just kind of burned into the image. It's one of those things that it can't be deciphered by a screen reader, and it can't be turned on or turned off. Closed captions, it's generally generated by a file that is uploaded with the content, and then that is able to be read and populated. It can be turned on or off on the post. Facebook and Instagram have ways that you can do this for your videos. So if we need to later, we can go through examples of both of those and how we can make that happen if you're unaware of how to do that. I don't know if anybody here has a podcast, but if you were to have any type of just audio files that don't have any video to it, you would need to upload a transcript with that audio file to make it compliant for accessibility. And then lastly, eliminate background noises for audio when possible. In my previous place of employment, I had a coworker that wore a cochlear implant. And every time that we went out to go record something, or if we were trying to offer something where we didn't necessarily have a sign language interpreter for him, he would find noises very distracting in the background because it was amplified with his cochlear implant. So a rooster, animals nearby, is there something like that that could potentially, pop up in audio files, recording in a really crowded space? Is there a lawnmower nearby? Like, make sure that you do an assessment of your surroundings before you identify a specific place to do your audio and video recordings. All right, and lastly, for accessibility, we're going to talk about using accessible language. We want to keep things precise. You want to keep things simple, limiting technical terms and jargon. Acronyms often fall into this. And then be open to feedback when you have your content reviewed by others. We were talking the other day, we all have different experiences and we all have different lenses to which we see things from. And so I may post something or create something to be published without realizing that somebody else that has a completely different context in the way that I wrote it. So when you're sharing content with your peers to have them review, if they're providing feedback that they think they feel a little bit off about it or they're uncomfortable about what you've done, be open to modifying it so that it makes it more accessible to everybody. And then, as we mentioned before, create content in multiple formats so everybody can engage at some point. So still photo, video, all of those are going to kind of trigger different audiences in different ways in terms of their enthusiasm for what you're posting. And so here I posted just a little acronym sentence. Would anybody care to give a gander on what this means? Anybody want to decipher it?
Okay, well, Dalton got the first one, in case you didn't know. Florida Friendly Landscaping and Master Gardener volunteers. And so Jillian got the top line, but not the second. And Kathy said, our best friends for life. That's so nice. We are.
All right. So we're piecing it together.
I have no idea.
All right. So in case you didn't know, Florida Friendly Landscaping and Master Gardener volunteers are best friends for life and always look on the bright side of life when on camera for a Flip My Florida Yard walk and talk.
My gosh.
So that's a pretty extreme example of, isolating somebody. But any of those acronyms, somebody could come across them and not know what any single one of those means. So you've already kind of alienated your audience if they don't know what some of those mean. All right. So overall, creating accessible content provides for greater audience exposure and enhances the search engine optimization. So that has to do with web terms and how people find you, the algorithms that are used. The broader your audience, the more people that feel welcomed by the content that you're producing, you'll have a greater exposure. So part of this accessibility training, most of what the content that I received was from a video here. It's called it's in the social media guidelines. It's called Accessibility Over Everything. And it's a video that's put out by UF Branding. And so we will provide that as a resource to you if you'd like to go back and take a look at that. That is a really good one where they provide you examples of what the screen reader sounds like. So you can kind of get a better understanding of what it is like to listen to a screen reader when it's trying to decipher some of these social posts. And I think the only thing that I didn't do when we were talking about accessibility, I was going to see if we could look at an alt text example. And so here on this page, I have here a post that I put up. And in Facebook, if you go under, I'm sorry, my screen is very small. Right here, there's a line that says change alt text. So if you click on change alt text, you'll see here that Facebook gave it a go to see what the post should have said or what maybe it did say. This one's not too bad because the graphic that I created is pretty much in line in terms of the way the text is structured. But if the text was structured in a different way, like that big graphic for the end of your report, what would happen is you may have sentences where it only picks up 2 words because it's trying to read it from left to right. And so it'll pick up 2 words from every column and then go down to the beginning column again, and then like read across again. So you have the opportunity to change or modify the alt text at any time in the post after it's been published. So we'll just click save there. All right, now we're going to get into a little bit about permissions and intellectual property. This is one of the biggest sticking points I think that we have as a business or a brand versus an individual who's posting on their own personal page. For a business or a brand, we really have to make sure that we're giving the appropriate credit if somebody has given permission for their images or their content to be used, and that we're not taking information that we don't have the license or rights to be able to share. And when I say share, share gets thrown around a lot in social media. You could always take something that has been created by another page, and if they are the owners of it, you can share it through Facebook, and they technically are still the owners of it, versus if you try and snip an image of something that they posted and then recreate the post on your own page, you're putting yourself at risk because you don't know where that originally came from. So you have no idea, whether or not it was like an open source or allowable image to be used in that way. So you're putting the university and IFAS at risk for liability with that. So here we're talking a little bit about, do you know the source of the photographic, audio, video? Does your extension office own the rights? We kind of talked about that a little bit already. And then if creating original content, did the owner give permission to modify? If use, you need to make sure, if yes, make sure that you provide appropriate credits to that individual or organization. This is a kind of goes hand in hand. The terms and conditions, according to ICS, a lot of the trending videos that are out there on social media use popular music. And unfortunately, they've determined through the terms and conditions that that doesn't cover brands. It doesn't cover businesses. So any audio that you have that you would use would need to come from a license that's owned by IFAS or it would need to be original audio. So if you are talking and it's just you explaining a plant, that wouldn't require any special permissions. That's your own original content. If you have a podcast that you created and you're turning that into a reel, that's your own original content, as long as you didn't put music on top of it that is popular music that we maybe don't have the license for. So it gets kind of tricky there because we want to be on top of the most relevant trends that are happening right now, but we really are beholden to the intellectual property and rights of the original creators of that music. So we have to be really careful with that. Same thing goes with stock photography and graphic software. We here in IFAS use a lot of, we have stock photography that's available to us through licenses that we've purchased. If you were to take that image and snip it, and then again, create your own post, that license isn't transferable just because you're another partner or within the Master Gardener volunteer program. That license, generally they're seated licenses. So it only applies to the individual seat of the person that holds that license. And they are the only ones that have the right to share that content out there or modify the content. So if you snip something that maybe you see that I really like this on the Florida Master Gardener volunteer page, and I think this would look really great on my page, likely you don't have the rights to use that image. The better way to share that content would be going into the post, the original post, and sharing it from there. Because again, the original owner is going to be the Florida Master Gardener volunteer page. Don't recreate things if you don't have to, because it gets really sticky. All right, so here I was going to go into really quick. I'm certain for those of you who are accustomed to social media, you share things all the time. But I'm going to go into Facebook really quick and we'll see if I can just share a post to our feed, and I'll kind of talk through a little bit about some of the different options when sharing. So this great post came up a couple days ago from the Florida Master Gardener volunteer page. And if I wanted to share this to the FFL page, what I would end up doing is clicking on the little arrow to share. And it gives me a couple options. So it says that I can share it to my feed, which is basically the primary page for my account. I can share it to a story, which here I wouldn't do because when you share it from a desktop, it just automatically just puts the whole thing just out there. So you don't have the ability to add links. You don't have the ability to modify it at all. If you're using a desktop, if you're using a mobile app, you would see a couple additional features would come up so that you could put added user experience content on top of that when you shared it as a story. And then you can also share it to a group. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share it to a feed. It's populating here that it's going to be for Florida friendly landscaping. And in this instance, perhaps I want to try and engage my audience instead of just putting this out there as an educational piece. So clearly there's a list of a bunch of edibles that are good to plant in the month of May. So I would type something like, which of these plants right? Which of these plants are you most excited about planting next month? Which one of these, and this is where I want to get into like wordplay because I could start wordsmithing things. But just for this illustration, we'll just go ahead and do that. I'll get a hashtag in there. Then maybe I should say growing instead of planting. All right. And I'm going to take that a step forward further. I'm going to actually, instead of garden, I'm going to say Florida garden. There we go. All right, so once I've crafted this original post is what's going to come across. So I've added my personal touch here. I don't have to snip this image and reshare it on my page. It remains the ownership of the Florida Master Gardener volunteer page, and I'm just using it to help amplify that message and share that content out. So now I'm going to hit share. All right, and if I go back to my page here, you'll see that it's added it there. So again, this is a way to use it, but I'm trying to engage my audience by asking them a question about the content that they would then go to and look at. All right, so that was for Facebook. For Instagram, it's very similar. Instead of the little arrow that you would use, you would find a post that you're interested in sharing. And then when you click on this little airplane button here, like paper airplane, then what will happen is you'll get a list of menu options that will show up underneath that. Now, not all of these are going to be able to be seen on your phone. So what you would do is you would need to scroll over on that menu option to the right to see these other options that are over here. So you can just copy the link. If you wanted to, you could go ahead and put that in a post. You could share it directly to Facebook, Messenger, or here again, you can add it to a story. So when you add it to a story, that's one of those where you could put that in there and then ask the question again to try and get some engagement with your audience. All right. So pretty simple. Again, I think most people are probably accustomed to that. As far as social media content, what is applicable to Florida Public Records request? Basically everything. So in the state of Florida, we have what most people term the Sunshine Law. And basically that means that people can make a public records request for just about anything that we have, that we create. So all of the Master Gardener volunteer pages would fall under that. It doesn't matter if it is a post, a comment, if it's on a private group, if it's a public group, if it's a direct message. And I say this so that you're very aware that what you say, even if it's in a direct message or a private message to somebody, that can still be requested under a public records request. So you need to be really mindful of what it is that you're saying when you use, when you're commenting to people, especially even if you've been having a private group page, because all of that can be requested to be made available. I know that most people generally for a private message or a direct message would be more professional if you're looking at working or looking to responding to somebody who's added a comment or asked a question of your page. But I think the one that would really kind of go awry is people that think that they're having these private conversations amongst each other, not realizing that that information could be pulled at any time. And this goes back to also not deleting comments, because if you delete a comment or you delete something else, then that record is no longer there. And we've essentially violated Sunshine Law by deleting it. Maintaining credibility and authenticity. This is essentially a meta planner. This is what Becky talked a little bit about earlier. She mentioned later, meta planner is another one. This is what I currently use. I have all of my content reviewed by the assistant director before I put anything out. So meta planner is a way for you to be able to do that. I essentially draft a post, and then when I draft the post, I can send it for review, and it will show up in the notifications tab up here, essentially stating Angela Gregory has requested, or whatever the name of the account is, has requested that this post be reviewed. And anybody who's an administrator on that page can look at that notification, review it, and then schedule it for publication at a later date. So just being accurate is critical to upholding the brand. All right. And then this was just talking a little bit about, I know Becky mentioned having a universal email account. There's also ways that you can create task access within Meta Business Suite. So if you have a Facebook page as a business or an Instagram business profile, likely you can have that transitioned or you will have access to a Meta Business Suite. And with that, you can create task access level for Facebook so that, for instance, when I log in as Angela Gregory, if I wasn't supposed to be able to delete an account or I wasn't supposed to be able to respond to comments, but I was just a content creator, I was just creating content to be reviewed for publication, you can toggle all of these permissions on or off to have greater control over what your permissions are within that page. So that may be something to evaluate, like who on your page maybe has more access than they should, and that could delete your page with a single click without anybody knowing and you couldn't get it back. All right, so here, if we have time, I think we're still good, right, Becky? We're in the home stretch here. I'm going to go through a couple of Q&A things here. I've got a couple of examples that I'd like to get feedback from the group on. Can anybody tell me what this is a picture of? This is going back to, yeah, exactly. So in 2013, American Apparel had an individual who worked for their company who took this image or an image similar to this of the Challenger explosion and posted it for a 4th of July post because they thought it was a pretty picture of fireworks. So you can understand like what this would have done in terms of their brand credibility at that time. So how would this apply to like a Master Gardener volunteer post? Well, it can happen really easily. Like there are many plants and other things that look very similar, but are very different. And so if you're taking something without truly knowing the origin of the person that's posting it and you're putting it out there, they may have gotten this completely wrong. They may be somebody who is just, starting out in terms of learning about different horticultural species and everything else. And so they may have identified something incorrectly. And then if you're taking it and then sharing it, you're then sharing that misinformation. So it's really critical that you know what the content is that you're pulling and what you're sharing with our audiences. Okay, so for this one, this has to do with hashtags. Entman's Donuts posted this: who's not guilty about eating all the tasty treats they want? What they didn't realize is they didn't do their homework for hashtags at the time, and that hashtag happened to be trending at the same time that the Casey Anthony trial was going on. So they got a lot of backlash about that particular post, not realizing that they had done that. So you always want to check your hashtags and just make sure that there's nothing that's inflammatory that's going on at the moment that, could be going on with it. So an example of how that might apply to Florida Master Gardeners. Again, we talked about hashtags could be banned as well. And so simply using the hashtag weed, there have been times that the hashtag weed, of course, associated with cannabis, has been banned on and off from different social pages. And so that's one to keep in mind. If you're posting something that has that in there, that likely it could be shut down or not viewed by anybody. It just wouldn't go anywhere. So be mindful of the hashtags that you're using. All right, so memes and comics. So in all of these, there's something wrong with all of these. Does anybody care to give a guess on some of them, what they might be?
Someone said accessibility.
Accessibility is one. Anybody else?
No alt text, licensing.
Yep.
Then stolen content.
Yep. So those are the primary ones. Other ones could be a little bit more subtle. So while this one here, gardening cheaper than therapy, until your spouse adds up the receipts. Well, we don't want to make it seem like every gardener or every person that wants to get into planting gardens, it's going to cost them a fortune. Because then that may isolate people that don't have the means to be able to afford purchasing a bunch of plants. And if they think it's an expensive hobby, you may immediately isolate them. So they may say, okay, well, this is something that I was interested in, but now I can realize that I can't afford this. So I'm just going to step away from it. So that one's one that's a little bit more subtle. So is the one that's next to it. We all had a playroom growing up. It was called outside. That's not necessarily true. You think about really urban environments. There were a lot of people that maybe they lived in a high rise or an apartment. They didn't have an outdoor space that they called their playroom, so to speak. The other ones do have to do directly with licensing, or stolen content without knowing the origin or knowing who to give credit to. So I just wanted to provide all of those examples. And then this one here, I put this one here because this is kind of, so you start digging, then you put flowers in and you're done, right? I mean, we know it's more complex than that. So, I mean, that goes directly against, what it is that we're standing for in terms of telling people that we're trying to educate them about all the ways of gardening. So this is just one example. It's still a meme, so that would be inaccessible unless you were to add the alt text, within the copy, which is entirely possible. You can add it in the copy or in the alt text field. But this is a little bit lighter. You could use this example and use one of your photos from your own demonstration garden. So utilizing your own photo, that might be something that you could do. So think of examples like that would still be applicable and engaging for your audience. And then lastly, measuring success. Measuring success depends on the individual, what we talked about from the very top, like how many resources do you have? What is the intent of your page? Are you trying to create a dialogue with your customer? If you find success in that you were able to help, one person, get the answers that they need, then that can still be defined as success. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the number of posts. It doesn't have to be in the number of people reached. I think ideally what you're trying to do when it comes to measuring success is, are you creating an environment where people feel safe to share their opinions, where they feel like they can come to us for advice, and that they know that what they're going to get from us is free of judgment and accurate information. So just like Becky, I had some additional resources at the end of this, and we will make all of these available. On the IFAS ICS page, they do have a whole section about social media services where you can learn more. They go into specifically about their best practices, social media strategy, specific platform guidance, and so forth. So I would encourage you to check that out. And then here were a couple of the additional branding links, which I think Becky already provided a few of. All right, so I think we have 26 minutes for questions. Is that right, Becky?
I don't think it's going to take us that long. So Diane asked, can you speak to the pros and cons of allowing comments in the discussion section of events for public participation?
I think it really has to do with how much time you have available to dedicate to responding. For Florida Friendly, even doing this full time, I don't necessarily have the time to go back and forth in those types of discussions. But if you find that you have enough resources and volunteers that are able to do that, then I think that it's something that could be beneficial, but it is something that has to be monitored. Again, you will have people that could be trolls, or you have people that, are going to put inappropriate information in there. So it does have to be monitored, and you need to make sure that you have the resources available to do so.
Because you could have a flyer and all the information and you'll say, no dogs or no pets or something like that. And then somebody in the comment would say, can I bring my dog? And you would want to be able to have the time and the resources to answer that. Also, somebody might put in there, oh, last year I went and they didn't have any, native blueberries, and kind of giving you a negative feedback about the event. Maybe we don't, we're only selling the blueberry hybrids. We have blueberries, but do you want to get into that? So Angela, I think if people are willing to handle it, yes, but sometimes it may not be as easy as it seems at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Diane, I hope I answered your question on that one. What other questions do we have? The thing about the memes and the comics, we brought up the good points about the alt text, but Diane or Danny also mentioned that it seems a little unprofessional and you can go a little too far with those things. So we want to think about, coming back to our mission, what are we doing to educate, and what kind of content are we putting out there that's educational and assisting the extension service and getting that info out there.
And I think, Wendy, if you don't mind me jumping in for a second, this goes back to something that we talked about early on, but I just wanted to iterate and reiterate, which is that when you are posting on social media on an official Master Gardener volunteer page, you're representing the organization, not speaking for yourself. And that's very critical to remember that anytime we post. We are speaking for the organization. You're representing the organization. It may not be live. In some ways, it's even more impactful because it lives forever. It's out there on the internet and people are going to see it. So we want to always keep that in mind whenever we're creating or crafting a post.
And Danielle says that she's had scammers try to get money from our audience, advising that they are collecting funds for vendor space when in fact we're not charging. So is that a comment that could be taken down because it's not factual? No.
We can't delete it. We can hide it. And when you hide it, again, we talked about that's one of the 3 criteria, right? It's a scam, it's a spam, it's something that's not relevant to what we're doing, it's misinformation or something along those lines. You can hide it, but we cannot delete it. And I do apologize, but that is something that we have to, it's a policy that we have to adhere to.
Yeah. And then Sarah from Duval said, that we didn't bring up YouTube today. That's probably a whole other ball of wax, but Becky is our YouTube guru. So if you have a specific question about YouTube, she'll answer that now if you do. And in the future, we can also do a training on YouTube.
Yeah, I love YouTube. I think it's great and it's wonderful, but it is, again, one of those, the first thing I think about when I think about YouTube and creating an account is please use a generic service account, because you cannot transfer it. If it's created by a person and that person would leave or decide to leave the program, or for some reason is inaccessible, you can't transfer that account. There's no way to do it with YouTube.
Yeah, we'll spend a little bit of time on YouTube videos in the near future. I think that would be good. What other questions did you might want to have answered?
I can think of one that maybe I would want to throw out to everybody is like, where are you sourcing your content from? So if you have a post that you're putting up, if you are looking for images, if you're looking for other stuff like that, if you don't have it immediately available, let's say at your office, like where are you getting photos from? Because it's just good for us to know, so that if we need to provide resources, then that's something, or we can provide guidance on, how do you edit a photo? How do you what resources might be available for creating graphics. We could provide that information to you. Okay, so the UF IFAS database.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and then, Angela, remembering that branding is both ways. So we have the county and UF. So Laura's challenge is making everyone happy. County has their branding and they push their branding on us as well. And who do we follow, UF or county? Fitting everyone's logo is a bit much. So
Yeah, it
I can
becomes a logo soup.
that might be something that ICS can help you design for your background photo or for your icon. Laura, I would ask Tracy Bryant to see if she couldn't do a nice collage of that would be appropriate for UF and for Miami-Dade. Oh, it's not easy out there, is it? But that's a good question. So Stephanie is using personal photos, so editing, etc., would be a good class in addition to YouTube. Okay. So needing maybe an editing class on photos. We can work on that too.
I think one of the interesting things about Photoshop, when you talk about editing photos, is that you can do so much with it, and sometimes you can do too much with it. And it's sort of getting that look or that eye is something that happens over time, and that takes a long time. So usually when we talk about editing with videos or photo, less is more. We just want to just touch it very slightly, and that can do a lot with those, just the little subtle increases. But subtle is the key, I think, when you think about photo editing.
And there's a lot of fake looking photos out there, and we do not want to be part of that. The blue and the yellow, a glowing blue hibiscus flower. And then my great aunt sends me that and she's like, where can I get this? I'm like, you can't, it doesn't exist in real life. This only exists on the internet. So we want to be as real as possible.
And I think a lot of that has to come with like a lot of the AI generated content as well. If you have a good enough eye, you can look at something that's AI generated and be like, yeah, that's not a real photo, but we don't want to over process something to make somebody question whether or not the photo that we're presenting is generated by AI or if it's something that we took and are providing. So two platforms that are out there. I know that a lot of people use Canva. Canva can have a free account, for creating social media graphics. One of the best things about Canva, as well as Adobe Express, Adobe Express also provides a free level, is that you can go in and you can take your photos and you can create products that are specifically designed for certain social spaces. So if you need a story for Instagram or Facebook, you can go ahead and select that as your product that you're looking to create, and it'll automatically do the dimensions for you. And it's kind of a plug and play type thing where you just take your photo, you put your photo in there, and you can add additional things on top of it. So it's really user friendly. It's meant for the average user, whereas like Photoshop or other softwares can get very complex. They offer more than what the average person generally needs.
Right. So on Canva, it says, create a Instagram post or create a, Instagram story, and it's a template and you can just put it right in there and then you're off to the races. So that's good.
I think the one thing that I would want to emphasize the most, though, and I have struggled with this just starting at Florida Friendly, where I worked previously, I would much rather have preferred authentic photos, again, of people and stories, because that's what is going to resonate the most with your audience and truly making it feel like you're authentic and that you're not trying to sell them something. The last thing that we want them to do is you're constantly, cramming information down that's just informational, that it's not slightly entertaining or it's not a personal interest story, because then they can kind of tune out with that as well. So if you can find something to connect with that, people, features, make it really important that they're following you and they're following your page because you are who you are. And they love the people that are a part of this program. So you need to utilize their knowledge and highlight them as much as possible.
Absolutely. And notice how, Pecky, we were in Duval County a couple weeks ago, and our IFAS photographer was there. She grabbed some photos. Becky got those out of the database, put them into her presentation, and right away everybody was like, "Oh, fresh Master Gardener photos." So yes, that does resonate with us. And so when you're out there, as a social media person, be trying to get those photos of each other, even if it's just, some dirty hands harvesting sweet potatoes. People really resonate. The pictures of faces are great. They do love them. So we will go ahead and combine our links in a resource sheet. Mark Stewart asked for the hashtags to go in there as well. And I would encourage you to do that social media training that Becky recommended. That was from IFAS, right?
It was, and it is available on the YouTube channel for Clue. So again, if you just look up Center for Land Use Efficiency, and if we talk for another minute, I can find the link and I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. Oh, and Diane's asking for a UF photo base database link also. Well, Diane, if you haven't used that yet, you're going to be, it's a UF IFAS photo database. You're going to be excited because it's searchable. So you can put in there wildflowers and you get a beautiful field of wildflowers, or avocados. You get lots of avocados. So we do have a pretty good database that they've been adding to for, gosh, probably 20 years now, as long as I've been around. So, and that's a long time, as you know. And are we going to get a copy of the PowerPoint presentations? Yes, we'll have a PDF of both of these. Those will be posted with the link. And here's a social media training. Becky just popped that into the chat box, but we'll include that on the resource sheet as well as the database IFAS photo database link. But I have to tell you, take as many pictures as you can and keep those in your account, because you'll be looking for just that. You'll get in the database and it'll be close, but not exactly. You want a Shumard oak, and they've got leaves and they've got acorns, but you want the whole tree. So you want to, when you see that photo, don't walk away from it. Go ahead and take it, because that really drives us so much of the traffic on social media.
Yeah, the other day, I had a very narrow window and I took some photos of slime mold in my garden because I knew that at some point I may need that.
And slime mold will totally disappear right before as soon as you need it. That's right. All right, everyone. I really appreciate it. I'll give you a few more moments to capture these links that Becky is putting in. And then Becky, I want to do a direct mail for everyone who registered for the class. We'll do a direct mail so they can get the PDFs and the resource sheet that we're creating. Yes.
Excellent.
Awesome.
They'll also get an email after this is all over. Anyone who attended today, they'll get an email with the link to the recording. So we'll also put all of these resources if you want to rewatch this online.
Thank you all for your kind attention. I'm so glad that you were able to make it. And we'll see you soon, and hopefully at the Master Gardener webinar a little bit later on this month. Oh, sorry, Mark, you do have to go back to work. Tell Larry that you're still watching. All right. Be good, everybody. Thank you.